In this podcast episode, Charlie Kirk shares his insights on a wide range of topics, from government corruption and fake news to personal finance and the cultural challenges facing America today. Kirk opens up about the pervasive corruption within government institutions, emphasizing the disconnect between the people and those in power. He highlights how the federal bureaucracy has become an entrenched system resistant to change, with millions of employees and judges often obstructing efforts to reform or cut spending. Kirk points out that this creates a cycle where government agencies spend taxpayer money with little accountability, often purchasing overpriced goods and services, which fuels public distrust. To combat this, Kirk advocates for radical transparency measures, such as putting the entire federal government's spending on a blockchain system. This would allow citizens to track every dollar in real time, ensuring that government funds are used responsibly. While acknowledging national security concerns, he insists that most spending should be visible to the public. Kirk stresses that the government's money is ultimately the people's money, and citizens have a right to know how it is spent. This transparency, he argues, is essential to restoring trust and curbing wasteful expenditures. Throughout the discussion, Kirk addresses the role of mainstream media in shaping public perception, often distorting facts or ignoring critical issues. He criticizes the media for focusing disproportionately on divisive topics like racism, while neglecting more pressing problems such as economic instability, public education failures, and rising crime rates. According to Kirk, this misdirection serves to distract the public from systemic issues that require urgent attention. Kirk also highlights how young people, especially men, are increasingly skeptical of mainstream narratives and are seeking alternative sources of information. He notes a growing curiosity about religion and traditional values among youth, which contrasts with the media's portrayal of a secular, ever-changing society. This shift, he believes, reflects a deeper yearning for stability and meaning in a world overwhelmed by constant change and ideological battles. One of Kirk's most passionate points concerns the absence of financial literacy education in American schools. He argues that this omission is not accidental, but rather a systemic failure that keeps many people dependent on government assistance and vulnerable to predatory lending practices. Kirk suggests that teaching young people how to manage money, understand credit, and invest wisely would empower them to break cycles of poverty and build wealth. Kirk laments that despite various programs and initiatives, financial literacy efforts have largely failed, leaving most young adults clueless about basic money management. He calls for school choice reforms and state-level incentives to introduce effective financial education. Kirk also praises initiatives like the proposed federal program that would provide every newborn with a $1,000 investment account, fostering early wealth accumulation and financial responsibility. When discussing wealth inequality, Kirk challenges the common narrative that conservatives ignore this issue. He clarifies that conservatives focus less on the number of rich people and more on the accessibility of upward mobility, the elevator, rather than the top floor. Kirk acknowledges that socioeconomic mobility is becoming more difficult, which is a critical concern for all Americans. He defends billionaires by pointing out that many have created significant value and solved major problems, citing Elon Musk as an example. Kirk stresses that wealth itself is not inherently bad. Rather, the focus should be on ensuring that everyone has the opportunity to build wealth through hard work, innovation, and market participation. He also warns against demonizing success, arguing that it discourages entrepreneurship and personal responsibility. Kirk reflects on his own journey as an entrepreneur, recounting how he pitched his idea for Turning Point USA to billionaire Foster Friess at the age of 18. This experience taught him that risk is often misunderstood. Many people overestimate what they have to lose and underestimate the potential rewards. Kirk believes that the current educational system discourages risk-taking, which contributes to declining entrepreneurship rates. He emphasizes that true risk involves sacrificing comfort and certainty, not necessarily material assets. Kirk encourages young people to embrace discomfort as a path to excellence and warns against the risk-averse culture promoted by many colleges. He credits his Midwestern work ethic and relentless hustle as key factors in his success, underscoring the importance of outworking competitors rather than relying solely on talent or intelligence. A significant portion of the conversation centers on the failure of modern colleges to cultivate character and wisdom. Kirk praises institutions like Hillsdale College for focusing on the development of the soul and moral character rather than just career preparation. He argues that character is the foundation for all decisions and success, far more important than technical skills alone. Kirk laments that most universities prioritize creating global citizens or training for specific jobs, often neglecting timeless questions about human nature, morality, and the good life. He believes that true education should foster wisdom, the understanding of enduring truths, and the cultivation of virtue. This, he says, is essential for a healthy society and individual fulfillment. Kirk offers practical advice on personal finance, emphasizing the importance of living below one's means, saving consistently, and investing in quality companies over the long term. He dismisses get-rich-quick schemes and stresses the power of compound interest as the eighth wonder of the world. Kirk challenges common excuses about affordability, encouraging people to cut small daily expenses like expensive coffee to free up money for investment. He also shares insights into his own financial management, noting that he reinvested most of his early earnings back into his organization and now maintains a diversified portfolio, including private equity and index funds. Kirk is cautious about individual stock picking, but confident in macroeconomic trends. He expresses strong support for cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, viewing them as a scarce asset with significant growth potential, and advocates for a U.S. strategic Bitcoin reserve. Kirk identifies several existential threats to American society, including a fertility crisis, widespread physical and mental health problems, and the erosion of community cohesion. He warns that declining birth rates threaten the country's future and calls for a cultural shift that encourages marriage and childbearing as moral obligations. He also highlights the nation's obesity epidemic and mental health struggles as factors that weaken societal resilience. Kirk expresses concern about the failure to assimilate immigrants effectively, leading to fragmented communities and rising crime. He paints a sobering picture of major cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco, where safety and quality of life have deteriorated, and calls for stronger leadership and law enforcement to restore order. Turning to social issues, Kirk critiques modern dating culture for fostering unrealistic expectations and a lack of commitment. He observes that many women prioritize superficial qualities like wealth and appearance over character and loyalty, while men often struggle with self-control and responsibility. Kirk stresses the importance of dating with the intent to marry and encourages young people to embrace traditional values such as purity and family orientation. He offers practical advice for both men and women, emphasizing that self-control is the most attractive quality in men and that women should be clear about their expectations and priorities. Kirk advocates for men to take financial leadership in relationships, including paying for dates, as a sign of responsibility and protection. He also underscores the importance of premarital counseling and open communication about lifestyle, finances, and values to build strong marriages. Kirk discusses the resurgence of religious interest among young people as a response to the emptiness of modern secular culture. He explains that despite the advances of modernity, many individuals experience depression and anxiety because they lack a sense of meaning and stability. Drawing on Viktor Frankl's work, Kirk emphasizes that meaning is a fundamental human need, second only to basic survival. He argues that traditional religious institutions offer a stable, consistent framework that many young people find appealing amid rapid social change. Kirk sees faith as a source of courage and purpose, essential for both personal fulfillment and societal health. He hopes that this spiritual revival will help counteract the alienation and despair prevalent in contemporary culture. Kirk addresses the controversial issue of politicians, financial holdings, and insider trading. He criticizes members of Congress who trade individual stocks based on privileged information, calling for stricter regulations or outright bans on such practices. Kirk proposes a system where all trades by public officials are disclosed 24 hours in advance to increase transparency and accountability. He expresses skepticism about the enforceability of these rules given the complexity of financial arrangements, but insists that severe criminal penalties are necessary to deter corruption. Kirk contrasts this with the idea of politicians owning diversified funds like ETFs, which pose less risk of conflicts of interest. He frames this issue as part of a broader problem of distrust in government and the need for reforms to restore public confidence. Finally, Kirk discusses the challenges posed by the growing national debt and the future of the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency. He acknowledges that the debt is already a major problem, but argues that economic growth can help manage it. Kirk supports pro-growth policies such as tax cuts and deregulation to stimulate the economy and increase government revenues. He warns against the dangers of de-dollarization, where other countries move away from using the U.S. dollar due to geopolitical tensions and sanctions. Kirk criticizes the U.S. for alienating allies and destabilizing the global financial system through aggressive policies. Despite these challenges, he remains optimistic about America's potential to overcome obstacles through innovation, leadership, and renewed national purpose.